Amazing. Welcome
Hi guys,
everyone.
welcome.
So good that everyone's joining us. This is amazing. Hey, look, just as you join us, we love having you on video. Then we can see you. You will notice that you are muted because we've got a big group today. But if you can turn video on, great. If your video is not on, that's totally fine. You can definitely just listen in. Great to see everyone. Just as we gather, we'd love you to share where you are in the world and what you do creatively in the chat. So we're going to be getting underway with the webinar very soon, workshop very soon, but just adding in the chat where you are in the world and what you do. And yeah, Jillian, you want to share where you are in the world, right?
Yep, I am in Connecticut, so I'm an East Coaster. Yeah, how about you, Logan? Where are you? I don't even know right now.
I think that's a very common question. So I'm actually in Mexico City right now. So I'm here for a few weeks. We'll probably talk briefly more about that. I do spend a lot of time in the States and in Europe, but occasionally Central and South America as well. So good to be here in Mexico City. So it's actually mountain time. Oh, sorry, Central time here. It's very confusing. It was mountain time. Daylight savings changing. Mexico doesn't. There you go. So very confusing with daylight savings. There we go.
Yeah.
Amazing. People are sharing the chat as well. So we've got some people from different places, which is fantastic. So just as you're arriving, sharing in the chat, everyone, where you are in the world and what you do creatively. We love it that lots of people are popping in from different parts of the world. So I know different time zones as well. We've got some people popping in from Europe today as well, and some other places too, which is fantastic. And then of course, US, Canada. You can see different places being mentioned. Hey, Elliott, amazing. Switzerland, there we go. Eucharist, amazing. Toronto as well, amazing, and people through the States too. This is great. Hey, we're going to get underway. So I know a few people are joining us, but let's get started. So over to you, Jillian. Let's do it.
Great, yeah. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to be here. So I'll just do like a quick intro of myself in case you probably know. But hi, I'm Jillian. I'm an illustrator and a muralist. I'm based in Connecticut. And really excited to bring my business coach here today to introduce him to you. And this is Logan. He's going to be sharing some creative business tips and a lot of wisdom for us. So Logan has had his own creative business for 11 years, and he's worked with visual creatives, graphic designers, muralists, illustrators to grow their own businesses with his wealth of business knowledge and experience. And he helps clients leave their day jobs to build businesses of their dreams. So I have been working with Logan and the Flammable Entrepreneur team since February. And with his help, I have really been able to take my business to the next level. Before working with him, I had kind of been just coasting and letting things happen to me and to my business. But since working with Logan, I have really started taking action, which has led to more consistent work and more consistent income, which we love. So super excited to have Logan here, and I am going to pass it over to him.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jillian, and great to be here. Great connecting with everyone as well, which is fantastic. So look, we're going to be running a workshop, a training today on creative business tips. We're going to be diving into a few different things. I will introduce myself a little bit more, just to add to what Jillian said. So my background is that I had my own creative business in the live event space for 11 years. I'm originally from New Zealand, so that's the funny accent. Some people are like, where's that accent from? England, Australia? A lot of people say Australia. It's New Zealand, so there we go. So look, my background, yeah, I had a creative business for 11 years. I was doing a lot of teaching next to that with universities, public programs, right up to actually a master's level, and then started coaching, mentoring, teaching, speaking on stages, small groups, one-on-one, kind of everything you can think of, online, offline, and all of those things. And then eventually sold the creative company and leaned into creative coaching to help awesome people with the business side of their visual creative business. So very much, as Jillian mentioned, the people we work with are visual creatives. We work with a lot of people within that realm, including graphic designers and illustrators and muralists and lots of areas in between as well, which is absolutely fantastic. The people we tend to work with kind of broken into three groups, and maybe those of you here on the call today can reflect on where you sit within that as well. Kind of group one are like, hey, I'm early stage. I really want to get this business really moving properly. Maybe I've sold some stuff here and there or a small amount. Some of you may be stay-at-home parents, or some of you may have day jobs, but you're really wanting to make this business work and, ideally go full-time on it. So that's kind of group one. And we help people leave their day jobs and really get the business really moving. Group two are like, well, I'm full-time on the business, but it's not sustainable. It's not really working. It's not consistent. And I want that more consistent revenue, but also to balance it and not overwhelm myself with, the stress and that hustle culture side. I'm not a believer in that hustle culture at all. It's working smarter and really balancing things like wellness as well. So that's the second group. The third group are basically people who have over 10,000 followers on Instagram. It's a very small portion of people we work with. A number of people, about 10% of people we work with have those larger followings. Most people have smaller followings. And we're going to sort of reference that a little bit today as well. So look, that kind of is a bit of an overview. I also do run retreats as well, mostly in Europe. I've run some in New Zealand too, of different types, art retreats, volcano retreats, kind of a whole different story. But some of you may know my good friend Kat Elliott, who I run retreats with as well every year in Europe. We had one in Morocco this year, last year was Spain, the year before France. So there we go. So let's get jumping into the workshop. Just before we do that, I will briefly mention that we are doing a giveaway today of some freebie coaching calls. The way that this works is that it's a 30-minute call with me. We're going to be giving away 3 of them to 3 people. We're also going to give away some extra calls to Paul from my team, who's the creative business specialist on the team. Basically what we do, if this is interesting for you, we would love you to fill in this form I've just dropped into the chat. Takes 5 to 10 minutes to fill in. We'll go through that. And honestly, you're going to get value from just filling in the form, because it really helps you dig into where you're at with the business, the things that come up. And I think, Jillian, when we connected originally, that was actually how we connected too, was through a form like this. So really encouraging everyone here to open up, check it out. We will share it in the notes afterwards when we email things out, but pop it open now. You can always have a look after the call there as well. And then we'll basically select 3 people to have a call with me, and then extra people to have a call with Paul from my team as well. We will share some creative business tips and also explore whether there's ways we can help you beyond that as well. Amazing. So pop that open. Look, we're going to dive into it. First topic we're going to talk about today is around setting achievable goals and actions. This is probably one of the biggest things that people struggle with, is actually getting stuff done. Look, we work with all sorts of different people. And one of the things we notice is that, yes, sometimes the knowledge is there of what you need to do and all of that, but it's more about taking the action, because there's a lot to do. Everyone's balancing different parts of their lives, and there's like 10,000 pieces you can do for your business. Sometimes I use the analogy that building a business is like a 10,000 piece puzzle that I guess you're doing like a garage floor, right? Somewhere you've got a lot of space. Now, obviously, there's lots of ways to do that. We've helped a lot of people to build puzzles, so we often are able to direct people in the right way, so they're moving their business forward, no matter how much time they have. So I'm going to share a few tips around setting achievable goals and actions. The first one, I love to call them ridiculously achievable actions. Right, so often what people do is they have a whole list of stuff they have to do, and then they look at that to-do list and they're like, I'm completely overwhelmed, I'm going to do anything. Instead, I'm going to watch something on Netflix, right? Because actually this is way too much. So instead, it's getting into a place of being ridiculously achievable actions. Now, I'm talking about 2 things. One of them is what the actual action is, like writing down things that are going to take you less than 15 minutes. There's a lot of actions that you can do in your business that'll take less than 15 minutes, even 5 minutes or less. So often what people do is they write down, rather than actions, they write down projects. Like they might be like, finish the website as an action. And I'm like, that's not an action. That's a big project that's broken down into lots of different actions, like find some good photos for your about page that you need to update or create, writing the information or the copy, the text for your about page, or going through and working on an element of the homepage, finding the imagery. These are lots of different actions rather than a project. So that's where, rather than big projects, you've got to make sure they're ridiculously achievable actions. Also, another thing that we really notice is that people do stuff that doesn't relate to what they actually want. Now, what do I mean by that? One of the big things is defining very, very clearly your goals, right? What is it you actually want? Because most people are like, oh, well, I want to grow my business. It's like, no, we need more specific things about that. One of the big things we do with working with our clients very early on is getting very clear about what the goals are. And then it's about making sure that the actions they're working on are working towards the goals. it sounds kind of a bit silly, but often it happens where you're working on stuff and it's not moving you towards the goals that you have. Maybe that's because you think you need to do this, or you saw a good idea online, or someone said you have to do this thing here, you have to have this, you have to have that. When actually what you have to do is do the things that are going to move you towards the goals that you have. So it's really, really important when you do that. One tip that I'll share with you that I do is that I will actually limit my to-do list for today to a very small number of items. Usually for me, it's 5 items per day. You know, like 5 things. You've surely got to do more than 5 things in your business each day. Well, you know, by the time you deal with your emails, by the time you have calls with clients, depending on what you do, it's surprising what you can do and surprising what you can't do. Now, if you finish your 5 action items you have on your list for today, right, you can go do more things, of course. But what can often happen is you end up with a list of like 50, 80, 100 things you have to do. Look at that list. As I mentioned, you just get overwhelmed. So actually really limiting it each day to a small number of things. So that's a really good tip that I definitely use and recommend. Honestly, for me, I'm on lots of calls and connecting with lots of people. I think it's kind of like 3 things makes a lot more sense than 5 these days. So it doesn't have to be an exact number here. This is really about you having focus within what you do as well. Jillian, would love to hear your thoughts around this in terms of your journey around goals and actions and things around that.
Yeah, definitely. I've also been limiting myself to about 5 things on my to-do list today, and checking them all off feels so good. Yes, this was huge for me, just taking goals, and breaking them down into the actions that you need to take toward those goals. Like, I was never really much of a goal setter, but in this program, I've started setting goals. And one of the big ones that I had this year was work with a book publishing, a book publisher to do a book cover. But just writing that down is like, okay, but how am I going to do that? So breaking that goal into, smaller actions, like sending or making a list of art directors that you want to work with, making your template outreach email, and then sending those outreach emails just makes it so much easier to actually see how you're going to reach this goal. And I reached it, so, which is pretty cool. So taking small, breaking your goals down into small actions has been a game changer for me.
It's huge. I love it. And like, I think part of this here, I love what you said at the start, which is like, I didn't really used to be a goal setter. And we actually hear that a lot. Like people like, oh, well, I'm not sure if I believe in the value of goals. We like life to be fluid and it depends opportunities that come up. One of the big things that we really see is that if you don't have clear goals, life is just going to kind of knock you around and stuff might happen. It might be what you want, might not be. And what we see with our clients is actually having those really clear goals, like Jillian said, actually directs your energy through them. And that's where, as I said, your actions are the things that are going to move you towards your goals. So, it's a big part of it. It's really directing your energy, and that's what it's about. Amazing. Hey, we're going to keep moving through the training and on to the next point. What I'd love to do at this part, though, is just pause here and get everyone to share their Instagram URL. I'm going to share our one here and share it as a URL, not just an at tag. If everyone can do this, Jillian and I would love to both be following you all if we're not yet, and be connecting with you all. So if everyone else can drop their Instagram tags, that would be absolutely amazing. So just sharing that in there. And as I said, always share the URL, not just the app tag, because then everyone here can connect with you as well. Part of growing and building a creative business is community, and this is a great way to connect with other people within the creative community today as well. So definitely leaning in, everyone's sharing it. I love it. Everyone's sharing it in the chat there as well. So make sure you go through and see what everyone is up to as well. Amazing. All right, we're going to jump into the next thing here. And next one we decided we would really focus on is, what is the one thing in marketing? And I'm going to talk about what I actually mean by the one thing. So first of all, I think it's really important to acknowledge that the thing that we see people struggling the most with around the creative business, it is marketing. It's actually getting their stuff in front of the right people. Yes, it's about what is their stuff and how do they price it, those elements as well. But ultimately, it's also about getting in front of the right people. And this is really what we've seen, is that we work with phenomenally creative, like people that are just really amazing at what they do creatively. The thing in their way is they struggle with the business side. And yes, there's a lot to that, but one of the big areas is specifically marketing. Marketing is definitely a big area. So we're going to kind of dive into that in a bit more detail. By the way, if any questions come up during the webinar or you want to ask, we are going to have questions right at the end. So if you can just hold off putting the questions in the chat until the end, and then we'll be able to dive into them at the end, depending on how much time we have. We did have a couple pre-submitted as well, which is good. So the one thing in marketing, the biggest thing I'm going to share, and I think this is so powerful, people get this wrong, you do not need to be everywhere. I'll say that again. You do not have to be everywhere when it comes to marketing. This is one of the biggest mistakes and one of the easiest ways to get overwhelmed is to try and be everywhere, because we hear it. You need to be everywhere. You need to be on all the social media channels. You need to be doing outreach. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to be going network. You need to do everything. I'm overwhelmed by saying all of those different things. Actually, focus is really, really important. And this is where the approach that we really take is helping people focus and figure out what their one thing is. Now, I'm not saying they don't do the other things or some of the other things. It's really where they put the biggest chunk of their energy. And I quite like the 80-20 rule when it comes to marketing is 80% of your energy should really be on one thing and then 20% on other stuff, right? And I'll talk a bit more in detail about that as well when we think about social media and how these different things fit. But everyone's different. We work with visual creatives, so we do tend to see these correlations between what people do, but everyone's also different in terms of specific where they're at and also their own personality, right? So for some people, the idea of like physical in-person networking is an absolute nightmare. They're just like, no, I would never do that. That's horrible. Other people, it's like, oh my God, I'm so burnt out and sick of social media, and it's just not something that I've heard that I have to be there. I have to post every single day to make this business work. Look, we have clients that, yes, they post every single day and their core strategy is social media. Actually, we also have clients that it's not social media and it's other areas as well. So, the areas we typically see people focusing on are things like, yes, social media, often that's Instagram, but also outreach is another area, networking, relationship building in lots of different ways, partnerships is another area too. And just a note here I'll share is that some people say, oh, my one thing, Logan, is referrals and repeat clients. I kind of have the clients I'm working with. Now, that's kind of okay. The problem is it's not going to be really a source of growth for your business. That might be a way that you can kind of sustain the business because the people you're already working with, for those of you that are, been doing this for a while, yes, they're going to come back to you and that's good. They might spend slightly more each time, but also some of them are going to drop off over time too. Yes, some of them might refer you to other people and that's powerful and helpful as well. But once again, it's not really going to be a source of growth in the business. So this is where these other areas are really, really important as well. Yeah, we've got clients who are like, well, they start working with us and they're like, yeah, it's kind of okay. I don't really do any marketing and it kind of works. Actually, they want to grow their business. It's not going to be through those things there. So I'm going to dig into this a little bit more and talk about social media on the next thing. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, Jillian, from your experiences in the last year or so.
Yeah, I think the biggest mindset shift for me was that my one thing is Instagram. And I think I knew that already, but I wasn't really treating that as a part of my business. I was sort of just posting when I felt like it. And the mindset shift that I had through like the coaching program is that it is part of my business. It is like the main thing that is going to bring me clients. So I gave myself permission kind of to post there and like be there as a marketing tool instead of just like as a fun little side thing that I'm doing. And that has been, really big for me. Just knowing that I need to be doing this. It's not like a waste of time. It's actually the number one thing in marketing for me. So those are my thoughts on that.
I love it, and I think it's good perspective for people here as well. And you've got a great following. What's your following up to now? We're at 50,000 quiet. It's getting there.
Not quite, almost there though.
Almost. So I may get after today a few more from people that weren't following you. So there we go. And I think this is really good technology, everyone. Is that yes, like for Jillian, absolutely. Actually, it is really about Instagram. Now there'll be plenty of people here that are like, I don't have 45,000 followers. Right. And therefore, it's just going to be a different thing. Now, it could be Instagram. We've had people that, yes, they've started with 1,000 followers and their core strategy has been Instagram. They've been able to grow their business that way. Others, it's other things. And this is really important technology as well. I'm gonna kind of keep moving because the next point really talks about this in more detail. We want to talk about the difference between social media as a core strategy versus what we call a supporting strategy. So basically what we're saying is that social media doesn't have to be the thing that you do, the core thing that you do to grow this business. However, we would say that it's a good idea for everyone to at least engage to a certain level, specifically with Instagram. Now, the reason for that is that it's a good supporting strategy that supports other stuff, right? So for example, if you're going to be doing cold outreach or even networking, it's great if you can refer people to your Instagram page or use that link. People might go check it out to see, is this person even real or not? You know, there's trust built there. But if it's a supporting strategy, you don't need to treat it the same as your core strategy. However, if it's your core strategy, it means you really need to lean in, just like Jillian's talking about with what she's really done this year as well. Now, leaning in means, yes, there's lots of different tools on Instagram. It's about leaning in and using as many of them as possible, and even keeping up to date with the changes that do happen. And when new things coming out, testing them, being a part of them, giving them a go. That's a really, really important thing. Versus if it's a supporting strategy, you can actually do less. So I'm going to give a couple of really specific examples within that. We all hear, online, you have to post daily on Instagram, you have to do reels, you have to be using all the tools, you have to be up with the latest game. What I'm saying is, yes, if it is your core strategy that you've identified, that is all true. But if it's not, then it doesn't have to be. You can actually post, if it's a supporting strategy, you could post there once or twice a week. Right? Saying once or twice, not nothing, not once a month. It's still a good place because it's a good supporting strategy. Yes, you can play around with new things that pop up, but you don't need to spend the core of your energy on that. And that's a really, really important thing to note. However, I have calls with people all the time that are, sometimes considering working with us. And one of the things that people say to me is like, oh, I'm trying to grow my business. And I'm like, great, like, what are you doing to market yourself? And they're like, oh, I'm on Instagram. And I'm like, hey. And they're like, yeah, that's the main way I market myself. And I'm like, oh, that's really awesome. How often do you post? And then there's this kind of wave of guilt goes over people's faces, and they're like, well, life got in the way. And like, totally, I get that. Sometimes it's like they're saying it's their core strategy, but they're only posting once a week or once a month. And therefore, they've really got to lean into that. Yes, we've got to balance what's possible and strategies for that. And it's kind of overwhelming to post lots, but there is good ways to lean into it. But I just really wanted everyone here to kind of acknowledge the difference between the core strategy and the supporting strategy. If you're like, I don't want to do reels, I don't want to post daily, I don't want to lean into Instagram, that's fine, but it means that you have to be focusing on something else as your core strategy. And all the other core strategies aren't necessarily super exciting either, right? So we talk about outreach and we talk about networking, building partnership. Some of those things there are like, actually, some of them are really hard as well. So, there's all sorts of opportunities for your business, but there needs to be something that you really lean into. So, yeah, just really wanted to point out that difference, between social media as that core versus supporting. You've already spoken to that a little bit, Jillian, but have you got anything else to add around your experiences within that?
I think pretty much is exactly what you're saying, like leaning in and realizing that, yes, this is my marketing strategy. So I do have to play the game of Instagram. And yeah, giving yourself again permission to do that is really important, and has been a big shift for me.
Love it. Awesome. We're gonna talk next about imperfect action. I think this is such a good one, and there's lots of ways to say imperfect action. Done is better than perfect. Those things there. Right? A friend who would say good enough. And I think in the creative realm, we all have pretty interesting relationships with this word perfection, because we basically don't want stuff out in the world that is rubbish, right? And we imagine if something's not perfect, it means it's terrible. We've got to remember there is plenty of space in between terrible and perfect. And the problem is that if you always strive towards absolute perfection in all areas, I'm talking creatively as well as the business side, often what can happen is you get very stuck and you don't move forward. All right, so I'm going to talk to that in a little bit more detail. One thing that I'll share around this is this question of really saying, do you actually need to be better at your craft, your creative craft? So we sometimes get people saying like, oh, I just need to work on my creative craft. I need to get better. I need to be more perfect at what I do creatively. And when their business isn't working or they're struggling to grow, they're like, oh, it's because I'm not that good at the creative side yet. So therefore, I need to go and do another course. I need to do another program. I need to learn more. I need to take another year, 2 years, 5 years to actually get better as a creative person. Now, look, in some cases, that is true. Most of the time, 90% of the people we speak to, that's not the thing in your way. actually, what I've been looking at when I look at people's work is based on where they're at creatively now, could they build a business that's going to earn $10,000 or euros per month, right? Based off their current creative skill set. And the answer is often yes. Yet they believe, no, I still need to work on those things. Now, I will say, yes, it's a lifelong journey. We want you to improve creatively, of course, absolutely. Because you're all creative people, you're probably naturally going to do that anyway. And you're going to keep improving, which is great. I'm really saying if you were at a standstill creatively, there would still be a lot of opportunity. So just really wanted to point that out because we see a lot of that happening. People want to perfect their art, their creative side. Often the reason that the business is not moving forward is because of the business stuff, right? Because actually they're not really doing much to market themselves. They don't actually have perhaps the right products and services in the right format. They're not pricing things right. And ultimately they're not doing the marketing side either. And most people know that deep down, but there's a resistance because we think about something not working, it's much easier to lean into the creative side because you get it, you understand it, you've done creative things before, you've learned new things. Actually, the business stuff is like this whole scary realm for many, many people, and it's also not that interesting, it's not natural, and those things there. So we've really got to just notice that often the imperfect action is an important part of it. I'm going to give everyone an interesting perspective I have around this, which is that you can actually treat the business side just like you do with the creative side. Just like when you learn a new creative skill set, you start as a beginner, you try stuff, you fail, you break stuff, you figure things out, you experiment, you learn, you make a mess. It's exactly the same when it comes to the business side and growing that. It's not a perfect process where you like learn something like outreach, you pick up the skill and you're away and it's done. And you're just automatic, you're perfect. No, like you're going to go through all the stages in between, just like you did when you were developing your own creative craft as well. So actually experimentation, trial and error, failure, breaking stuff, learning is all part of that business side as well. And I think often when we embrace that mindset, it can really, really help you to understand that this is something you can lean into. A lot of people say like, oh, I have no idea where even to start with these things. This is really, really hard. Absolutely. It's the same on the creative side when you do something new as well. So very, very powerful. I love this word there, just looking at the chat area. So I call that procrastination. I can't quite get it right. Procrastination. I think it's a really, really, really good call there. Is that, yeah, it's like, okay, here's another creative class. I need to get better at this. I need to get better at that. Once again, I'm not saying that that's not going to add value. I'm just more saying it's not usually the thing that's getting in your way of really growing the business and moving things forward. Really, really important side of it as well. And it may not feel natural. Like leaning to the business side may not feel natural. Actually, this idea of taking action, taking imperfect action is not natural either. Because once again, we're imagining rubbish being out in the world. What I'm saying is the work that you're putting out creatively, but even on the business side as well, to be good enough, right? Imperfect action, moving things forward. That's the way you're also going to learn as you move forward as well. Something on this is when we talk about the marketing side or the number side, kind of the business side, you don't need to be like a 10 out of 10 expert when it comes to like breaching some numbers, right? That's not what is required for you to have a successful business, but you're probably going to need to move from like a 1 or a 2 to a 3 or a 4. You're probably going to need to increase those skills, but you don't need to be perfect at it. And that's kind of what we're getting at as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, Jillian, from your journey here as well.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much my exact experience where I was really focused on just like creating more and more work and getting better at it rather than putting myself out there. Because like when it comes down to it, it's scary to reach out to people and say, hey, let's work together. So I would say the biggest like imperfect action that I've taken since starting this coaching program is outreach and just my emails aren't anything that's like spectacular, but I sent them and I am still sending them. And that has led me to some really big opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have found me any other way. Yeah, though, so just doing it has been a game changer, definitely.
It's a really powerful topic, and I think it's so important for us to acknowledge the stuff that can get in everyone's way around the taking action. Because once again, it's not just the knowledge of what you need to do, it's the mindset side that gets in your way as well. And this is kind of what we're getting at is the mindset side of like, oh, I'm not good enough yet, or this, I don't think this is perfect, I shouldn't send it. And I think part of where that fear comes from is the worry of judgment, the worry of maybe sending a cold email to someone and then to like email back and be like, who do you think you are? Like, oh my God, you know, that was a terrible email and I checked out your work and it's also terrible. You know, like that's our fear, is to have that sort of judgment. And that's part of the process of what we're working through here, is getting you out there. Because once again, the biggest challenge in business, and creative business specifically, is that not enough people know you exist. Not enough of the right people know you exist. And we see it again and again, is that people are very good at what they do creatively, but they really struggle with that business side, and therefore taking the action required on the business side too, because it's new and it's experimental and it's hard and it's challenging, and you're going to get rejection. We're gonna reference this more as we move on, because we're going to talk about outreach in our next point here. But one of the biggest challenges with outreach is that you have to deal with rejection. Now, I think the hardest rejection sometimes is no reply. Crickets, right? So you send an email to like your dream client. Hey, here's me. You know, you've been working on all of your work and your Instagram's looking perfect. You've got some portfolio, your website, you're sharing things with them, and you're like, you send it, here we go. This is my big opportunity. And then you don't get a reply. Crickets. And therefore, your brain's telling you you are a failure. They didn't even bother replying. They didn't even look at the email, those things there. Right? That's a very natural thing for us to feel, rejection. And part of it is that's what's also going to happen when you put yourself out there, whether it is through cold email, whether it's through Instagram, right? I'm sure plenty of people here have done a post that they've worked time on or put a lot of time into, their artwork, maybe a reel, and then crickets. Oh my God, it must be terrible. Well, we've got to remember multiple things here. One is that it's often a numbers game. And two, we're dealing with things like the algorithms and spam blockers on emails. There's lots of different things that can get in your way. So we're gonna dig into this a little bit more. But what we really wanted to touch on next around this is more specifically good strategies for reaching out to clients, right? Because it's kind of interesting to talk about this stuff, but we want to have everyone here have some good takeaways from today as well. And reaching out to clients you want to work with is something that you can do. Just be clear, everyone, if we're talking about email outreach, this is still a strategy that works. I think when we think about email outreach, we think about spam. We think about those emails that we'll get in our inboxes. That is just like stuff we're not interested in. This is targeted outreach to people that potentially would be interested in it. You also all do really amazing creative things. So you're actually sharing that message. You're not out there selling, you know, something that, no offense to vacuum cleaner salesmen, but you're not out there selling vacuum cleaners, right? You're selling something that is really interesting, really creative, whether they have an need or not. They're going to be able to look at your work and be like, wow, this work's absolutely incredible. So when you are reaching out to clients, we're going to give you a few tips. The first one is who. Who are you reaching out to? So it's hard because people say, you know, I don't have no idea what to say, how to find these people. And we go back and go, okay, cool. Who are the people? And they go, anyone that's willing to pay me, anyone that's, and this is actually one of the biggest mistakes people make in marketing in general, is I am willing to work with anyone that is willing to pay me. I'm willing to work with anyone that appreciates what I do. The problem is if you try and market to everyone, you're going to end up marketing to no one. It needs to be really specific. When it comes to outreach, if you are clear on the type of people or the type of organizations you want to work with, it's going to make it a lot easier to find them. Like that is a big part of it as well. It's going to make it so much easier. Now, for example, we work with lots of different people, but one area is muralists. So muralists, well, there's lots of different opportunities for muralists. And they say, well, anyone that wants a mural. And we're like, no, we have to dig much more deep than that. So you can get into, for example, real estate. You can get into Airbnbs. You can have private homes. You can have commercial properties, cafes, restaurants, co-working spaces. These are all basically different groups of people. And if you specifically decide, you know what, I'm a muralist, and the core of my audience, I would love it to be co-working spaces and Airbnb. You could decide on that. Well, now you can actually target your outreach and you go, okay, well, I need to find all of the co-working spaces that are locally, whether that's in my town, city, or maybe even more widely if you want to look beyond where you are. So therefore, when you decide who, you can get more specific. So that's number one. Number two, that's really important, is to create a template email. Because the first thing you're going to do when you've got someone's email to message them, you're going to sit there with a blank screen and you're going to be like, what do I say? And then you kind of like try something that sounds really silly. Actually create a template email first. And then what you can do is every time you go to email someone new, bring up that template and then you can personalize it. Important you do personalize it, by the way. This is a mistake that people make. They try and send the same email to lots of people and it just changed their name. No, having even just one or two sentences personalized up top is going to do several things. One of them is that you're less likely to get stuck in those spam filters, because that's one of the biggest challenges, is that your email might not be seen because it's going straight to people's spam. So therefore, if you're sending the same email again and again and again, it's more likely to get stuck in people's spam filters. But if you change something, even just their name and maybe another sentence, it's less likely to happen. Also, it shows that you've done the research. So this is another point I will talk about, is that when you email someone, when you reach out to an ideal client, show you've done some research by actually telling them. And that might be, hey, I was looking at this, or I was looking at that, I was on your website, I love this here. Something personalized, which shows that you've actually taken some time. You're not just found an email, boom, send it off. Now, the key here is balance. You've got to really balance this between the fact you can't spend an hour researching every single person and or something you can't do nothing. Now, there's somewhere in the middle there. I'm not gonna. We can do a rule of thumb, which is spend 5-10 minutes each. Now, even then, ideally 5 minutes. You might get really fast at this and get better at doing the research, finding out something, sending the email. We see that it just takes time for people to get faster with this stuff. Another tip that I will share around this is that you then need to build a list of clients. Right, building a list of clients to work through. This is a different activity from you actually doing the emailing. Right, sitting down and going, okay, for the next hour, what I'm going to do, one of the 5 things I'm going to do today is to build a list of ideal clients. Right, giving our Muralist client examples. Okay, well, co-working spaces. I'm going to actually do research to find co-working spaces in my region. How are you going to do that? Well, good old Google, as naff as that sounds, it's true. Absolutely, you can just do some Googling, co-working spaces in Nashville or wherever you're based. Right? You can actually do that. You can do some other things, like you can get on social media, you can get on LinkedIn, you can get on Instagram, you can use different ways, different social media tools to look for those clients as well. We've even had clients that have literally gone on Google Maps and typed in like co-working spaces, or let's say they're looking for cafes, like type it in cafes, they're all going to pop up in Google in your region you're looking at, and then you can go through manually, pull them up, try and find their website, try and find an email address. But once again, this is a different task from you doing the physical emailing. So try and bulk those tasks. Sit down, see if you can get 10 names or 10 names and emails in that hour. You might be able to do 20 or 30, but see what you can do. And then a separate activity is the actual emailing. Now, the actual emailing, Jillian knows this as well. It's a numbers game. It takes time. Yes, you might message your absolute dream client. They don't reply and you're like, this is a disaster. Well, a 10% reply rate to cold email is good. Right? 10% reply rate to cold email is good. Now we've seen people get 20%, 30%. That's definitely possible as well. But that means if you email 10 people in the next week, you might get one reply. You might get none. You might get 2. So that's where, okay, 10 emails, that's good. Can you do it every week? Can you increase that number slightly? Because actually it is a bit of a numbers game over time as well. And we really see the people that keep at it, it works. Like, it is a system that works. It's not the most interesting success system, to be honest, but it's one of the ways you can really grow your business is through that. A quick tip I will mention, I'm talking about your dream client. If you have never done cold outreach before, do not email your dream client first. It's an option. The world's not going to end if you email your dream client first. Maybe actually see if you can refine your template, learn some stuff, get some replies, do that for a couple of months before you start emailing your absolute dream clients. And so that's just a little tip to think about there as well. Hey, and you know how I said 10 or 20% is good? I'm saying reply rate. I'm not saying booking. I'm not saying they end up working with you. I'm saying they reply. And so someone might reply saying, oh, I love your work. Please take me off this list. They reply. That counts. They usually took the time to reply. Or a common thing that people get is, it's amazing. I'll keep you in mind for the future. And it's up to you now to keep in touch with them as well. Jillian, would love to hear your thoughts, because I know it's something that you have been doing as well as a bit of a supporting strategy. Anything you want to share with everyone around that?
Yeah, it does work is like the number one thing. I think that sometimes you send out an email and it feels like it's going into like a void, and like maybe it is, but sometimes you do get a response and like it is worth it. Yeah, I some tips around it from me. My number one way to find people to outreach to is I will like see what other artists are working on. And like if they're tagging art directors, sometimes they'll just like, tag the company that they've worked with. I'll add those people to my list if they're like, projects that or artists that are like sort of in line with what I do as well. That's really helpful because then in your email to this person, you can say, hey, I saw that you worked with this person and I loved it. And I would love to work with you as well. And I find that those personalized emails get the best like response rate, at least for me. And I think it's just because you've acknowledged that you've seen what they've done, who they are. And it's just a little more personal. So that's very helpful, I think. The other thing that I always recommend is schedule sending your email outreach, even if it's just like 10 minutes in the future. I talk about this all the time. It just feels less personal. Like you're just letting your email do it for you. And if you have Gmail, you can like schedule like an hour in a like later in the day or whatever. And then you can go take a little walk and it feels like less scary when you're sending your emails. So that's a hot tip, definitely. Yeah.
I love that. I think, such a powerful thing for people here to think about. And even just within what Jillian has been sharing here, like Jillian's been doing a lot of experimentation, right? That's been part of the journey as well. A lot of experimentation, trying different things, trying this, trying that. And one of the questions we got sent in is actually talking a bit more about this, so we will come to that. It is question time now. So look, anyone has any questions for myself or Jillian, can be related to the webinar, it can be outside the business things. Can you just pop them in the chat, things that you'd love myself or Jillian to jump into, to share a perspective on, to help you with? Have a think about what a question would be and just fire it into the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go through these questions that we were sent in. So first question we were sent in, I think is a really good one. What do you do when you don't get replies? Right? What do you do when you don't get replies? So maybe this person, I don't know how many emails they're sending, but they're just sending cold emails and it's basically not working. So what's going on here? First thing that I'll share is that often when we really dig into it, most people are not sending enough emails. I've just talked to that, but that's kind of one of the biggest things that we see. They're like, it's not working. I've tried it in the past, right? I've tried cold email outreach. It didn't work. It's a waste of time. It feels scammy. It feels pushy, whatever, right? And it doesn't work. Or often when we start digging into what were they actually doing and how many were they sending, they're like, yeah, I sent like 20 emails. And I'm like, you're just not going to learn enough to know whether it really works by sending 20 emails. So often it is, right, let's send another 20. Is that possible to do that in the next few weeks, in the next month? Let's get you taking more action. So that's probably the number one biggest thing, is as much as we kind of wish we were looking for the secret sauce of what exactly I'm doing wrong, well, often it's just not enough of it. You've emailed 3 people, none of them replied. I'm like, yeah, 10% reply rate. I'm probably going to reply. That's pretty normal. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you can try different strategies. It may say that your current template, your current strategy is just not working very well. Okay, so that could be looking at the template that you have, changing it, trying something different. What I love getting our clients to do here is like almost a bit of an A/B test, which is having 2 versions of an email. So version A might be longer, a bit more detail there. Version B is like a much shorter, much more condensed email that they send out. And every second person, they send the other one too. And then you're measuring which is which. Now, once again, you're not really going to know until you've sent at least 20 emails. Ideally, you send a lot more to really know what is working and what's not working. But experimentation is very much going to be part of it. I think, often people are looking for like, what's the perfect thing to say? What's the perfect cold email? What's the perfect template? Well, everyone seems to react differently. So we've seen it. We've seen people who have used an exact strategy, works really well for them. And then we've seen someone else use the same strategy, no replies. because everyone is slightly different in terms of their audience, what they do, their personality, those things there. So therefore, testing and trialing different things is going to be certainly part of it. So yeah, think about that A/B test. Another thing I'll share here is that follow-ups can be very, very powerful, right? So you don't just have to send one email and then say, well, they're obviously not interested. They didn't reply, so I don't want to, harass them. No, you can send a follow-up email. You can say, hey, just touch base, did you get my message a week ago? Or, hey, send an email through a week ago, just wanted to add X, Y, Z. You can do follow-ups. We've seen for our clients, it works. You'll get a number of people will reply to the follow-ups. And it's amazing, very, very rare, very, very rarely do people say, who do you think you are? How dare you email me? I already saw your email last week. I already deleted it. It may happen, but it's very, very rare. Mostly people who do reply go, oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I've had a really busy week. I did see your email last week. Thanks for the follow-up. Look, would love to discuss this. Or, hey, not confirming right now, but I'm definitely going to keep your information on file. So actually the follow-ups can be really, really important. So, if you're not getting the replies, there's a few things that might be going on here. But as I said, the number one thing is you're probably just going to have to do more of it, which is not always the most exciting answer. We're more like, what's the perfect thing I missed? Oh, you just got to do more of it. So it's a really, really good thing to point out. Share it with Katie. So Katie shared here, my main clients are corporate and business. Any LinkedIn or business to business tips? This is a really good area to think about, is what are those different types of connection you can do? And LinkedIn is an area that you can certainly lean into. It's something that, during our accelerator program, we get our clients sometimes testing and leaning into as well. The main thing, Katie, would be really looking at what's working and what's not working already. So one of the things that we see is that for say LinkedIn, if people are using LinkedIn and they're using Instagram, sometimes what happens is they kind of yo-yo between the two and they're not really spending enough time and energy on either of them. So sometimes what happens is they're like, oh, I'm Instagram, I'm really going to lean into that. And then they lean into that for a few months. And then they're like, oh, the algorithm changed. I'm going to go to LinkedIn. And they kind of bounce over to LinkedIn and they stop doing Instagram or do less. And then after doing LinkedIn for a while, they bounce back. So I just want you to be very, very aware of that bounce that can happen when we talk about different forms of social media as well. In terms of LinkedIn, you can use it in lots of different ways. We've got clients that just use it. They don't actually connect with people through LinkedIn. They actually just find people's contact details through LinkedIn as well. And just a tip there is that depending on which version of LinkedIn, if you've got one of the paid versions, you can often search for exactly their role title, like what those people do. So if you're looking for an art director or a cafe owner, or, you can often search for different specific things that people do. So that's something you can do with LinkedIn. That's quite useful as well. The other thing is you can treat LinkedIn in a similar way to Instagram. You can be posting on there, you can be connecting with people, you can be doing lots of different things there as well. I just want you to be very aware of moving between the two and not putting the time in that Instagram needs, and then not putting the time in that LinkedIn needs as well. It's something to really lean into within that too. Jillian, have you played around a bit with LinkedIn yourself yet? Is that something that you've played a little bit with?
Not too much. It's on my list. But I have used it for like searching for art directors and just like getting a list of names. But I don't have like the paid version, so I can't speak to how that will work for you. But yeah, it's on the back of my mind.
I think the reason I sort of got Jillian to share this here is it's such a good point. Is there's so much stuff you can do, and Jillian's like, yeah, it's on like the backlist of things I could do at some point, but we've got to be aware that you can't do everything. So even going back to what I talked about in the training here is you can't be everywhere, right? So and people might say you have to be on LinkedIn, it's here, you have to be there. Well, but if that's going to be at the cost of your other things, like for Jillian, if that's going to be at the cost of her putting her full energy into as much energy as possible into Instagram, well, it's probably not worth doing, because you're like, oh, you're jumping over here to LinkedIn, but then Instagram can fail. That's an interesting thing to point. Or what you can do, and this is, I know something you've been considering doing, is like putting a small amount of energy into LinkedIn to learn a bit more, to kind of test it out. That's something that you could do, as long as it doesn't affect your core strategy here as well. So just want everyone here to be very, very aware of the flutter that can happen, like switching between platforms because of the algorithm, which sometimes is a nightmare on all platforms. Oh, it's not working. Okay, I need to go over here. We see people doing that, and they go, well, over here didn't work either. Now I'm going to go back, and then they've lost some momentum over there as well. So I think that's a really good one to be aware of. I'm going to keep going through the questions here. So we've got this question here around which website service do people use. So this is a really good one. And look, in terms of website service, there's lots of different options for them. We typically see a lot of people using things like Wix. We see people using things like Squarespace. Also, there's a difference between getting someone else to build your website for you and doing it yourself. Right, so that's just something to think about. If you are talking about websites, hosting side, you might not have actually meant by that with your question. So do add more detail if you didn't mean that. But just think about, is this something you're going to build, or is this something that you're going to pay someone else to do? The biggest thing is if you're going to get someone else to build your website for you, those of you that don't have a website yet, make sure you still have control of that website to do updates. Right, we hear this happening all the time. People being like, oh, like, I can't update my website. I don't have access to it. I've got to pay someone else. I've got to message my web person. Now, that may be fine. You may decide, I guess I'm happy with that. There's plenty of people out there that will do this and awesome people that can update things for you and do that. You might decide to outsource it. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to be aware of that. And we don't want that being in the way of you keeping your website up to date because it needs to be updated. This is one of the biggest things. Those of you here that already have your website, I know I'm sure there's multiple people that are like, oh, yeah, but guilty of keeping things updated. Because actually most websites need ongoing maintenance, more ongoing updates and those as well. I'm going to jump into this next question here. So this is really around style. So can you comment on whether you need to define a style to start your business? I feel like I haven't really found my style yet, but I still want to experiment with different mediums and forms. Can you still start a business at this point? I've got an answer here. Jillian might be able to add some thoughts as well. Look, the answer is yes, you can start your business when you are not fully clear on your exact style. This is something that you can keep working on, developing and growing as you move forward with your business. It's more about, do you have creative skills that you can sell things with? And so if you're like, oh, none of my skills are up to a standard, well, yes, you might need to go and work on your creative skills, and that may involve working on your style. But you can probably still start a business if you do have some baseline skills and you can do things here, but you're going to keep developing your skills. Also, starting a business, by the way, is a good way to develop your skills because you're actually going to literally be working with people on projects. You're going to need to be posting on Instagram, be creating new work. That is going to help you develop style as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this one, Jillian, because I think this is a really important point.
Yeah, I definitely started working with clients before I had a style. And I do think that your style is whatever comes out of your hands. So you probably already have a style and it will keep evolving as you continue to work on your craft and all of that. But at the point that you're at, I would imagine that you already have a style. Mine has changed a lot and I do feel like now I've locked in like what my style is, but it was kind of already there from the beginning. It's been, developing. Yeah, so I think you can definitely start a business at the point that you're at. I did. And in terms of experimenting with different mediums and everything, yeah, you can. I mean, I started digitally and now I'm painting murals. Sometimes I tuft rugs and it's all my style because it's coming out of my hands and my brain. But yeah, your style will translate to all sorts of different mediums. So go for it.
Oh, love it. Such a good answer. And this stuff here is so important. It's kind of that imperfect action stuff at play again as well, is that it's about getting out there and connecting with people, starting business, getting things moving as well. That's going to be something that will help you to keep developing your style and those things there too. And we often see people, I think one thing that we all do this is we compare our creative work to everyone around us, right? So easy. Like right now you can go on Instagram and you can be completely flooded and overwhelmed with how much stuff there is out there. Right, I think we all know and we're all aware of that. And what happens, it's very easy to jump into comparison of like, where's my quality work versus this person here versus that person versus that person. It can be quite overwhelming. Sometimes actually we've almost got to ignore that and just get out there ourselves, take action with our creative abilities. And that might be with a clear style, it might not be. But you're going to learn and develop and grow if you just compare yourself to everyone else around you. you're always going to find the perfect things in their work and the imperfections in your own work. So, you know, like us as the creative, we often see the imperfections of our own work. It's a very important thing, but I'm sure that person that you're comparing yourself to is also looking down, oh, I hope no one notices this thing here that I've really got wrong. So I think that's really good. So we're going to be wrapping up with the webinar, with the training soon. So I am going to be sharing in the chat again that survey. This is for one of those freebie polls. If you're interested in entering that, pop that link open now. We will share it obviously in the email and stuff afterwards as well. But we'd love people to get filling that in, do it today, do it in the next couple of days there as well, so we can go through and select some people. Love to get on some calls with some of you here. It might be some people watching the recording as well. That would be absolutely fantastic. Wanted to just kind of reflect back on where we started with this webinar, and one of those big messages, which is really around the balancing the creative side and the business side. And I want everyone here to really notice and really deeply think about, what is the thing in their way right now? What is the thing in the way of you moving this business forward? Now, I'm sure it's not one thing, I'm sure it's multiple things, but I want you to really think about, is it the creative side, or is it the business stuff? Most of the time, and I think 90% plus of the time, it's actually the business stuff, even if you feel like it's the creative stuff. And I just want everyone to be very, very aware of this as you figure out and move forward with your own journey as well. And obviously would love to connect with people here and, you know, really reflect on that more. We'll be talking about it on those freebie calls as well. And also, you know, there's ways that we can help you on that as well. So look, we're going to wrap things up there. It's been good today, hasn't it, Jillian? It's been a fun group and good question.
Yeah, no, this was great. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to finish things up there. So good to connect with everyone. Have a lovely day. I'm sure we'll be all connecting in lots of different ways through DMs and emails and all these good things. So enjoy your day. And thank you, Jillian, for having me along as well.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. See everyone. Bye.